We ask, what is the greatest humanoid encounters you've ever heard? Story 1. It was spring of 2007 and my then boyfriend and I were on our way from New York down to Miami to go to a music festival. We were driving south on the highway along the east coast of Central Florida when we pulled into a rest area so that he could catch a nap. He had been driving all day when he decided that he desperately needed a short rest before getting behind the wheel. We had a very recently bought this van and he did not think that I could handle maneuvering it, so he was doing all the driving. I later did prove him wrong. He parked and jumped in the back of the van and laid down on the futon mattress that we laid there. He told me to leave him alone and proceeded to pass out from exhaustion. I was pretty freaked out because the rest area, it was unmanned, locked up and dark inside. The restrooms were closed, the small rest area building was surrounded by dark woods. There were about 4 other small cars in the parking lot, but no sign of any drivers, so I imagine they were having an emergency laydown as well. Normally, I would never set foot outside of the van in such a scenario alone. My instincts told me not to get out of that van, but I had taken some Midol for menstrual cramps, and they have given me brutal nausea. I needed some pretzels. I mustered up all my courage and opened the passenger side door and squeezed through the space between our vehicle and the vehicle that was parked directly next to ours. As soon as I had a clear line sight of the front of the rest stop building, I saw the thing. Saw it. Clearly. Straight ahead I saw the brightly lit front facade of the rest stop. To the left of the door was it. To the right of the door was the vending machine. Immediately it communicated with me. I was flooded with what I consider a telepathic message from the being. I cannot be seen. I cannot be seen. I must travel by night and exist in darkness. I cannot be seen. I cannot be seen. I cannot be seen. And I felt an enormous wave of compassion for the being rather than fear, which may seem a more logical reaction to someone hearing this story. For some reason, my brain only categorized it as one thing initially, an outsider worthy of compassion and tolerance. Its skin was pure chalk white. Not the skin tone white, the color white. Its eyes were several times larger than ours, and it had 2 little air holes for a nose and a very thin mouth. Its frame was completely concealed by its enormous, long, black hooded robe. It looked as if though it was quite giant underneath and pretty frail looking. It was sitting on its bottom knees bent back against the brick front of the rest area. To the left of the front doors as well. It was sitting with its back very straight, tall, and erect. It seemed in awe of me, or maybe in awe that I was actually approaching it. It looked vaguely like a human. Very vaguely. Its face was like a snake. Its eyes were right on me, locked. I threw a little, everyday smile in its direction, and then I did something strange. I continued to walk towards the rest area even after seeing it. I walked towards the rest area building, closer to it. I walked forward about 20 feet from the rear of the van to the rest area steps, up the 20 or so steps and to the right where the vending machine was located. My thoughts at this point were very bizarre in retrospect. I feel bad for the thing. I don't want it to feel different. I know that sounds hilariously quaint if we are indeed talking about an interdimensional being, but I did not want to run back into the van because I did not want to hurt its feelings. I did not want to make it feel like a freak. It had already told me that it could not be seen due to the way people would react, so I wanted it to know that I did not judge it for the way it looked, and that I was willing to come to terms with its horrific appearance in order to extend some humanity towards it. I did not know about fallen angels and such at that time, so it was with that very bizarrely strong conviction to be righteous and humane to it that walked towards the vending machine. I actually got those damn pretzels. I'm telling you, my stomach was churning. I used the vending machine with my back towards it. Sniders in hand, I swiveled around to look at it again before descending back down the steps. It was at that moment that pure terror rippered through me. It was close to it now. approximately 15 feet away, and I could see now that this was definitely no way that it was human. It was staring right at me like a wide-eyed insect. It was still in exactly the same position, except that it had turned its head to look at me, better position as I changed. It looked like an alien. It looked like a demon. It was no human. Its huge, one-dimensional eyes were totally black. I'm not sure, but I know that it did not have wide eyes. They were almond-shaped like the classic alien eye that we all know. It was then that I realized that it was extremely fucking tall. Unthinkably tall. Although I was standing and it was sitting, its head still stood taller than mine. Its huge eyes were fixed on me totally, with fascination, alarm, and with the most intense focus, just like the way my cat looks at something right before she pounces on it. When I had made the decision to climb the stairs towards it, and not to retreat to the van, I thought that it was sitting on top of something and that it was just its head raised up so high. Now, from this closer perspective, I could see that it was not sitting on anything but its own butt. If I had realized that it was this freaking tall at the start, I very well may not have gone up those stairs. So, after the ripple of terror went through me, I responded by smiling the way you smile at a stranger when your eyes catch on the bus. I shot it a casual, thin, innocuous little, "Hey, how you doing?" smile. Why and how I acted as if things were totally fucking normal, I cannot explain. I've never acted so cool in my life. There's a Seinfeld episode when Elaine says that one of the reasons there is decent persons because when I see freaks in the street, I never even stare at them. And yet, I'm careful not to look away. See, because I want to make the freaks feel comfortable. So that's actually what was going through my head, believe it or not. If I were to guess what that thing was doing when I encountered it, judging by its body language, I would say that it was somewhat displaced and resting, but I have no clue. Maybe it was in the middle of something far more sinister. It did not look like a mutant or anything experiment. It looked ancient, timeless, and placeless, graceful but horrible. It was also firmly in this dimension when I saw it. It was not a hazy vision in the slightest. The lighting was not dim. It was not even remotely ethereal experience. The extreme bright lights that illuminated in the front of the rest area building revealed every contour of this entity. If only I had been closer, I could have provided much more details about its facial features. As I was walking back to the van, I quickly strategized about how to make sure that my fear did not paralyze me and prohibit me from getting safely inside that van. I decided not to look back or even around me as I turned the key, because if I saw that it had moved or saw it coming towards me, I would have been too terrified to manage with the car keys. I got in the van, locked the door, and I screamed that we need to leave immediately. We did. As we drove away, about 90 seconds after it was in my last sight, I looked out the window and saw that it was gone. There was nothing where it had been, just brick wall and concrete floor. When I was 13, I had just come home from school. There was a big storm outside and rain was pouring down. It was around 3 or 4 p.m. and it was still pretty bright out, despite the storm clouds. I was making myself a sandwich when a bolt of lightning struck the ground about half a block from my house. The boom was so loud, but immediately following the boom was a human-like screech that gave me shivers. I looked at the window through the rain and I could see some kind of animal crawl from the yard to a Jeep that was nearby. I thought, oh crap, a dog must have got hit by the bolt. I went up to the window to get a closer look and saw a big, orange-red fury thing crawl under the car. It looked like an orangutan. Seriously, it was so big and moved like an ape. I saw its arm grasping the side of the Jeep as it crawled under. I took a minute to think about what I just saw, and then decided to try to get a closer look. So, I went outside and slowly walked up to the Jeep. When I got to the Jeep, I looked under and saw a glimpse of something orange disappear into a storm drain that the Jeep was parked next to. I noped the fuck out of there. I still have no clue what it was. It screeched like a dying coyote but looked like an orangutan. Sewer apes. I was 16 and woke up in the middle of the night to see my clothes being rustled about in my doorway. After washing my clothes, I like to hang dry them on the door frame. I notice some really gray, veiny-looking legs, and then I see these really long, pointed sticks moving through my clothes. It took me a second, but my sleepy eyes adjusted to see one of the most grotesque, demon-looking motherfuckers I've ever seen. He was extremely skinny and had a distended stomach. His skin was gray and veiny, and those long sticks were his fingers. His chin was long. His eyes had no eyelids on them and were unusually big. His tiny mouth was in a pucker and moved like he was eating an imaginary lollipop. His hunched back looked as though it had tore out of the strange hospital gown he was wearing. He just stared at me, and I tried to scream at my grandmother to wake her up, who was sharing a room with me for the weekend. He would not stop staring, and I stared back and tried to shake my grandmother awake. I started noticing other things about him, like how large and cone-like his head was, how hairless and shriveled he looked. As he stood still, surprised I could see him, my grandmother woke up, looked towards the door, and he was gone. In the weeks leading to this encounter, I had been experiencing strange things in my house, like my bedroom door slamming and locking on its own. One night, I woke up to what felt like several hands touching my feet and legs. Horrible nightmares. After the experience with the strange gray man, I told my parents, and they had my room exorcised. I don't know if an exorcism really made those things horrible to stop or gave me peace of mind from things I was manifesting myself. All I know is I don't experience those things anymore. I'll never sleep with a door open again. My friend worked at Harrah's Casino in Maricopa, Arizona. Anyone familiar with this area knows that this particular casino is out in the middle of nowhere on the Native American reservation. Anyways, my friend is a normal, emotionally stable white guy who is atheist. He was working late around 3 a.m. on the casino floor. He's a night owl, so he was wide awake since this is his normal shift. He's not a drug addict or one to make up bullshit stories. So, he's in the empty casino walking into the vacant men's bathroom on the opposite side of the casino floor. He walks in, does his business in the urinal, and turns around to go wash his hands, when he notices something standing in the sink staring into the mirror. He thinks to himself, "That's strange. I didn't even hear anybody walk in." He gets closer to the sink about 5 rows down and begins washing his hands. He glances over again to realize it was not a man that was standing at the sink, but a woman in a red dress. Right when he's about to say something about her using the wrong restroom, this woman turns her head slowly towards him, and he just stares at her in kind of disbelief, thinking this chick must be drunk or blind to not realize she's in the men's bathroom. As her head slowly turns, her eyes were dark and glowing red. He describes it as the red eyes you get when taking a photo of someone. He freaks out, doesn't know what the fuck is happening, and looks down to notice she does not have legs. Instead, she has what's described as the bottom half of a deer for legs, and she was walking on hooves. Anyways, as this thing turns towards him, it starts to move aggressively, and my friend ran out of the bathroom, obviously scared shitless. He had his buddy review the surveillance tape of that area around the bathroom, but all that was seen was him going into the bathroom and then running out of the bathroom. He may have experienced this. Hey guys, Midnight Monster here. If you're enjoying today's creepy story so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel, as Midnight Monster drops daily videos of the most disturbing, unexplained, and downright blood-curdling stories that you've ever heard. One night, when I was 13 years old, I had gotten my period for the first time and ended up sleeping on my back. I am an avid slide sleeper, so this is a really weird position for me. I was dreaming, and in that dream, I was sitting in a chair. I leaned back on its back legs, and suddenly, the chair started to slowly lean further and further back, until I drifted into the eternity below me. This freaked me out. I jolted awake. When I woke, there was a figure leaning and hovering towards my face. All I saw was a hoodie, white, flat ovular and relatively featureless face with big ovular glasses eyes and an expression like it was determined to devour my eternal soul. The face was humanoid, very two-dimensional with thin, quivering, angry lips and 2 holes where its nose should be. With eyebrows arched high up into its forehead, I could feel an unworldly hate burning right through me as it loomed over me. It was absolutely the most helpless I've ever felt and would ever feel because it was more than just my life I felt at stake. I tried to move. I tried to scream. Heck, I tried to breathe. Anything. And I couldn't. It was paralyzing me with its hate. I was finally able to let out the tiniest whimper, and as soon as the sound escaped me, it stood straight up and paced back and forth at the foot of my bed, still staring. It was like a force field was erected around me, and the frustration of it trying to get at me again was radiating throughout the room. It looked like a starving tiger behind glass, lounging at the lounge at its vulnerable prey. If only it were for the barrier between us. It was tall, almost all the way to the ceiling tall and very thin, wearing a long black cloak that covered everything except that terrifying face. I realized that it had not been floating over me. It had stood at the front of my bed and leaned over it and hovers its face over mine. I sat in my bed, still frozen, just staring at it. My closet door behind it was creaked a few inches, and it swooped in there and peered out at me, never having broken eye contact once. It continued to stare, quivering with hate and frustration until it slowly faded away. I turned my light on and it stayed on at night for a long time. I never slept with the closet door open again, and I did not sleep again that night. I stayed the night in the living room with all the lights on, just sitting on the couch. I later dismissed it as a sleep paralysis for several years. It was a very believable and plausible explanation. Then, I became friends with a girl who confided in me and told me a story. She was up late at night by herself with the door open. Something out in the living room by the kitchen caught her eye, and when she looked at it, she saw a figure standing there, beckoning her to approach it. She looked away and refocused on it, and it was still there. When she described it, she described the exact same creature that had attacked me. We each got a sketchbook and drew what she saw. And when she showed me hers, I was staring at my attacker all over again. She had never heard my story before telling hers. I'm 18, my dad is dying. I'm home alone taking care of the house and my little brother. My dad's in the hospital just wasting away. At this point, he's got like a 50% chance of making it. I'm sleeping in my parents' bed while they're away at the hospital. I'm sleeping alone. I'm laying on my side facing the door, and a figure is just there. But seeing him isn't frightening in itself. He looks weird. Reddish skin, black eyes, black trench coat, that I could maybe not shit myself over. But the way you feel when you see him, that's what terrifies you. This pit in your stomach like you have to present something in front of the whole school. Except, this is a gunman at your school and he'll shoot you if you do it wrong. Like that. Except worse. I once told a friend, quote, "You know what it feels like when all is right in the world? That inner peace and happiness? It's the direct inverse of that." And it is. He's standing in my parents' doorway and it feels like I'm going to puke. I blink and he's gone. Whatever, bad dream. A couple days later, again, I see him. He is one single step closer, same feeling, same dread, terror. This continues for some time, always just one single step, never more, never less. Well, eventually he makes it to the bedside, and I thought I couldn't feel any worse, but it was actually possible to feel worse. He bends unnaturally to the side. He bends to the side in the same manner to the rest of the world would bend over, rotating his spine to the side 90 degrees. His face is now facing to face with mine, like we were two lovers post-coitus or some shit. But it doesn't feel like that. Then the smile. The smile he makes looks insane but content. He knows something I don't know. Then a few days later, my dad died. Nothing dramatic like he flatlined or something when it happened, but he did go. Then I saw the man again and again and again. and then one last time. Each time within 2 weeks before someone I knew died. If there's any interest, I'll post the other stories of me seeing him. It's just hard to talk about because it does make me cry. The second time, this one is the hardest for me to talk about because I feel like I caused it. It had been a couple years since my dad died. I was married and living with a man. We got pregnant and I wasn't sure I wanted it. I waxed and waned. Well, lo and behold, he shows up. I knew what was going to happen, and I got hysterical. I would wake up and he would be there in the doorway, and all I can do is look at him and cry, then close my eyes and he's gone. But it was a different one because at this point, I was married. I had someone that could watch me, hear something, or at least see it. He got closer and closer and I became more paranoid, very upset. I felt like I was a crazy person. What was wrong with me? The doctor blamed it on hormones, and I got all the way to the second trimester. He was closer in his path to me, but I saw him less and less. I had begun to think he was just a figment of my imagination, and that I was having some other issue accepting the baby. Then, when he got close enough, he hovered one hand above my belly. It wasn't all weird like he sat there in the air, but it was like he was going in to touch me. I closed my eyes and he was gone before he could make contact with my skin. 4 days later, I go into early labor. The baby dies. Last time, hopefully. I have a few kids now and it's been years. There he is. Different house, same MO, right in the doorway. But this one felt quicker. He came every single night and I was angry and scared. I did not feel as intimate in a way. I felt like he took the worst he could take from me. Is he just gonna take everything? Fine. Fucking take it and stop with the theater. I was worried, but just angrier. It's like a curse. And I wasn't going to be like I was last time. I was made stronger from that, and I was not going to just let it happen to me. I told some friends, and of course, they did not believe me until I told them face to face. I told everyone I could. I wanted to know what he is. What does he do? Is there a name for him? All the while he's coming closer, but it did not feel like it was trapped fawn waiting for the hunter to kill me. I felt a sense of empowerment. During the day, at night, when he would come, the crying would just start, and those feelings like everything in the world is wrong, nothing is right, and it'll never be. A week later, my aunt, who I was not close with, climbed a construction crane and jumped off, killing herself. If you lived in the Denver area in 2010-ish, plus or minus a year, then you would have heard about it on the news. So that brings us here. 5 years later, I haven't seen him again. I've talked about him a lot. Never met a person who seems to know him. Hence my excitement. That was the final story for today's video. Drop your comments and situations down below if you have any similar thoughts of things that have happened to you in your life. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, as well as subscribe to the channel so you never miss any more videos.